Alright, this is Suicide Squad, the fourth issue from 2002. I wanted to talk about this issue for a while, but I kept forgetting to actually look at it. This Suicide Squad series didn't last too long. I think it was only 12 issues, but there were some parts of it that were commendable and some others that weren't. I reviewed the best issue of the series, issue 3, and I also reviewed issue 1, where I dealt with all the bad stuff, chiefly the Kevin Giffen comedy banter. This one is probably the second best issue, and it is good for a very specific reason. One of the big ideas here was to take the 80s Suicide Squad and combine it with the original Suicide Squad, the Silver Age Suicide Squad, which was a war comic that had nothing to do with bad guys being conscripted onto a team. This version of Suicide Squad is between those two ideas. It is led by Sergeant Fury, and this here is a framing sequence with art by the book's regular penciler. Very good artist. But most of the issue is a flashback to the war, with art appropriately by a Goldie Age artist, Heathcliff. And one of the reasons I wanted to do this now was because we only just recently had that cover by Junior on my covers video, and Junior is an artist who definitely has gotten shit as he has aged. Whereas Heathcliff, at the age of, I don't know, I'd say somewhere between 70 and 80, he is knocking it out of the park with fill-in art on an issue of Suicide Squad in 2002. There is a lot of detail, and especially the faces. They are fantastic. It might be that the inker is doing a lot of polishing, but I don't want to be disingenuous. It is really good art. I would talk a little about Heathcliff, but the truth is, I didn't know that much about him. I think he did a lot of war comics back in the day, but one thing I know for certain is he co-created Uranus Boy, future member of the Angels of Aslan. He drew Uranus Boy's first stories. That's the main thing I think of when I have to remember something he did. When I first saw his name on the credits of this, I thought, that's a guy who drew Uranus Boy in the 50s. And as I said, his art here is really good. It's not the case that it's good because it is an art man doing good art. It is good art because it is good art. I don't really like war comics, but I like this issue. I think it is a nice reprieve from the usual fare of this Suicide Squad. There is no Kevin Giffen jokes. And it is a very clever little reappropriation of the modern Suicide Squad team to a war genre issue. Sergeant Fury assembles a team of disgraced and discharged soldier boys to gun up against the Nazis. One of my favourite things here is the way the development of these characters is handled. They are all treated as equals. You cannot pick out which ones will die. And then when one of them does die, and dies straight away, it is a surprise because you were only just handed their backstory. I'm just a big fan of this issue. It is somewhat different, and it is a nice callback to the original Suicide Squad idea. So I'll talk about that. The Suicide Squad debuted in the 60s in The Bold and the Beautiful, issue 26, and it was a Soldier Boy war comic. Although to say it were a typical war comic is deceptive. They were often fighting dinosaurs and dragons and shit like that. The Suicide Squad eventually became the headline feature in War-Spangled Star Stories. But after the 60s, they didn't get any use. Their final appearance as stars had a cover by Heath. So there is your link if you want one. In the 80s, writer John Ostrich, he revamped the idea to the format that most people are familiar with. It is a team of supervillains working on behalf of the government as a means to reduce their sentences. I will say, some might scoff and point out that the idea is almost completely divergent from the original team. But in John Ostrich's stories, there was always stuff that I would say was the 80s equivalent of a war comic. A lot of government and political intrigue, a lot of spying. Often the missions involved Russia or the Middle East. I think John Ostrich was aware and keen to establish the new Suicide Squad as at least having some thematic continuation of the original team. And now we have kinda come full circle, because here Kevin Giffen, he does the reverse. We see something like the original Suicide Squad, but with some of the ideas of the modern incarnation mixed in. We have a team of discharged or problematic soldier boys, and some of them die sudden, abrupt deaths, and they are left unresolved. They managed to fit just enough in so that the deaths have some shock value or surprise, because narratively these characters don't feel complete. The action is handled very well by Heath. I guess those Goldie Age artists and even the Silver Age artists, they were more schooled in art, and they actually established a lot of the fundamentals for comic book art. And it's not until the dementia starts setting in that these Goldie Age artists truly forget how to do art. Whereas someone like Junior, not to diss him too much, he began by effectively copying or mimicking the very artists like this, as he gets older, he loses his way because he never really had a personal handle on art creation. He only had a handle on what other people were doing. I have made Junior sound like a total fraud. He has gotten bad, not because he was a bad or lazy artist. He got bad because he simply didn't have the same dedication or experience as Heathcliff or whoever. I don't know if I've really made that point well enough. It makes sense to me that Heathcliff was still doing quality art in his 70s, whereas Junior isn't. They come from very different environments and work ethics, and comparing the two is really unfair to Junior. And Junior had a great career and has done fantastic art. But this is obviously better than the last thing Junior drew. Junior's skills came from study. Heathcliff and other artists of this era got their skills from persistent application. I don't have too much to say about this story. I don't want to entirely spoil it by getting too much into it. I do recommend this, and for reasons besides the art by a very, very hard man, and the idea of re-establishing Suicide Squad's origins as a war comic alongside the well-known Suicide Squad. It's a decent issue, and they do another issue like this. I think issue 9 or 10, but it's not as good as this one. But they do have another hard man doing the art for it. What do you think of the art in this? I've said what I think, but I do want to hear if other people think it is good or impressive. And if anyone can make my point about why Junior has gotten bad, while someone like Heathcliff didn't. If anyone can make that point better than I have in this entire video, please do. I'll give this issue 7 thumbs up.